Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Paleo Love and Transformation. We are doing, I think, my second ever video podcast. And I thought we had to so we could see this beautiful, radiant, bright, and shining face on the other side. Dr. Sean Stephenson, the only.
The only. There might be, I think there's like a podiatrist, Sean Stephenson, out there, but we don't have to talk about him.
You're still the only. I'm quite
That's
certain
right.
of that.
Camila, I have one question for you before we begin on this program.
Yes, sir.
And that is, can you show more energy and happiness, please? Because you're really boring me here. Exactly.
How's that?
Perfect.
Now I have to fix my mane of hair.
Perfect.
Well, it's a lot more to manage when you're looking at yourself on video.
Yeah, I think people would definitely think twice about their appearance if they were followed by a mirror everywhere they went.
Everywhere you went, yeah, seriously. Wow, so we could probably talk for 17 hours.
Yes, I hope we don't, because I might need to pee.
Right,
but
right.
Other than that.
Yeah, so I have been following along with you for a little while. And I think the reason why I was so excited to that you agreed to do this interview is because I just love everything that you're about. I love your energy. I love your vulnerability. I love your authenticity. I love your just like living life without filters, calling it out as it is, not holding anything back, and that actually doesn't even necessarily have anything to do with your, I don't want to call it disability, but you're about to get into your story. I think people on the video will see that
you could just call it my container.
You have a different shaped container than most of us, and that's interesting also, but even if you had the same shaped container as everybody else, I still have been just so inspired by your message and the man that you are and the way that you have this beautiful blend to me of softness and vulnerability and authenticity, along with I'm going to kick life in the face. In a beautiful way, but just like really, really going for it.
I'm going to violently handle life.
Yeah, exactly.
But with heart.
Exactly. And so I don't know if that'll end up being like the name of the interview, but that really is what to me is one of the things that's so special and why I was really excited to have you on this call. And I really hope, obviously you're an inspirational speaker, and your message is important for women, but I really think that you have an important message for men, and that there aren't a lot of really, there are some, and I know we know some really awesome men doing awesome things, but I just really consider you to be this amazing role model for men.
Thank you. Well, I know that men my generation are oftentimes growing up in the world still, and I feel like we grow up until the day we die. We're growing up oftentimes without masculine, healthy role models.
Mm-hmm.
And I was blessed to have a good father, and he's still in my life, and he's still awesome. But not everybody gets that treat. Yeah. And I feel that once you're 18, you're responsible for raising yourself. And you're responsible for finding those role models out there that you want to model, that you want to aspire to take on the lifestyle that they have. And I think that one of the challenges that men get into is that in order to grow, in order to be willing to emulate another person that you admire, you have to let go of your ego, because your ego will tell you, I don't need to model anybody. I got everything handled, and it will make you think that why would I want to be like anybody else? And it's not about when you think about emulating or modeling somebody. It's not about being a carbon copy of them. It's seeing what they did in their actions? What beliefs do they have? What mindsets do they own internally that got them to have the lifestyle that you may want to have yourself? I know that when I was younger, I wanted to emulate the guys that knew how to pick up women and were really good at romancing women and making women fall in love with them and want to sleep with them. And that was what I wanted to emulate. That was my world. And then one day I became that man, and I still wanted more. I didn't want more sex or more women. I wanted more connection. And so then I started emulating men that had great girlfriends. They had beautiful relationships. And then once I had that, then I wanted to emulate a man that was happily married. And now I'm emulating men that have families, because my wife and I have a little puppy, and we go back and forth on whether we want children. And so just whoever you are emulating is who you'll eventually become if you stick with it.
Yeah, I think that is so important to see on the positive side, but also it's a major pitfall for people when they are embarking on a new journey of transformation, is recognizing that for the most part, a lot of, like, the people that are in your life, that are usually in people's lives when they start their journey, are not the kinds of people that they want to take with them on their journey, and being willing
And
to
that's hard.
let those people go.
That's hard to say goodbye to somebody that you have a history with. But as I say, just because you have history, you still have to look at what kind of history do you have. Does your history suck? I mean, if you can only point out drama and chaos and devastation, then what kind of history are you dragging into your future?
Yeah.
And I don't think you have to feel bad for moving on in life from people who don't want to personally grow and evolve, because they are choosing that. And I've spent many times in my life, Camille, where I tried dragging people kicking and screaming into personal growth and wellness and health and vitality and prosperity. I ended up hurting them. I ended up hurting myself,
And the
because
relationship.
yeah, absolutely, and the
Yeah.
relationship, because you can't. And this is, I think, probably a deep premise that I have in my life that separates me maybe from a lot of other deliverers of content, and that is, I don't believe that I can change anyone. I don't believe that I have that godlike power. No one changes because of Sean Stephenson. I hear it all the time. Sean, you've changed my life. And I'm honored and flattered to hear those words, but that's not true. What happened is the person made a decision themselves to say, I want more. I want to have more, be more, do more. And Sean Stevenson influenced me to change. He didn't change me. And that's what I feel like I'm on this planet to do, is just be an influencer of change. Not everybody's going to take it. Not everybody's going to run with the ball. But I offer a way of thinking and living and believing that hopefully will make somebody's life a lot easier to experience, a lot more smooth and less chaotic. And at the end of the day, I think it's so hard myself to keep myself on track and to get myself to do what I say I'm going to do, that how the heck could I act like I could tell you what to do and have you become some kind of robot zombie that follows what I say? I know that's not real. And so as experts and gurus, or whatever we want to call ourselves, influencers of change, we just have to get back to the truth. And the truth is, the best way to teach is to show. And to show is to live. To live a life of purpose. I will admit to you that recently I got off my exercise pattern, and I went like 23 days without working out. And that's a long time for me. And I knew it was 23 days because I record. When I work out, I have a board in my gym that says what day I worked out. And it is so painful to go to that board and be like, yeah, I haven't worked out in 23 days. But it's also so exciting to start a new pattern and say, today I'm starting again. And as long as you're making yourself wrong and bad, that you haven't done it perfectly, then you won't be able to enjoy your life. You won't be able to pick yourself back up when you've fallen down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think there's, another piece to that is it's easy even to begin taking all of that for granted. Like maybe before you didn't exercise for 23 days, you had been exercising for 90 days straight.
And
And
I've
then
done that too.
yeah, and you get into the like, oh, this is just the thing that I do now. And not, I know for me, and a lot of us A-type achievers is we don't stop to acknowledge ourselves for the 90 days that we did do it. And then we fall off and it's like, oh my God, I'm so da 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 da. And learning to really have, it's an interesting balance, like learning to have compassion for yourself when you fall off, and really acknowledging yourself for the great strides. Like I'm drinking these like really not very delicious smoothies in the mornings, and I'm not actually stopping really to like acknowledge myself. I'm like, wow, Camille, you spend a lot of time and money putting disgusting glop into your body. It's more just like, oh, I should be doing this. And
So can I
then,
stop you for a second?
yeah.
What's in that smoothie? Because I make vegetable smoothies all the time.
Oh, so I've been staying with some friends who he as you guys can also see, there's like all of these herbs in the back,
I
and
know it's like witchcraft. I'm
it's
looking for like frogs and gnomes and
yeah, no, it's crazy. I'm going to be interviewing him on my podcast soon. His name is Sean Gardner, and he runs like one of the coolest herb or like Chinese medicine and herb things in the whole world. So
cool.
this has in it. Have you ever had colostrum? Do
No,
you know what colostrum is?
sounds scary.
Yeah, so it is the first milk that comes out before breast milk. The colostrum is the very first. It's like the pre-milk that a baby gets. So
Whoa.
it's like, imagine it's the very very first thing when you come out of the womb that your body is ingesting. So there's colostrum powder in it, which is insanely good
Like
for you.
from a human?
No, from cows.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be really weird. That'd be like cannibalism. And there is lots of kale, probably like 7 handfuls of kale, berries, a banana, coconut oil, a little bit of almond, and then it
How could
has,
that be bad? That sounds
no,
tasty.
wait a second though, but it has cordyceps powder,
Okay.
I think reishi powder, those are both mushrooms. It has bee pollen, and I think something else, but I think the thing that makes it taste pretty nasty is the probably the mushroom powders, and all of the kale is pretty bitter. And I
Mm,
didn't really put anything sweet in it beyond a little bit of a banana. But let me
yeah.
tell you, you commented on my energy. So it's either most mornings I'm either doing something like this or doing a big green juice,
Hmm.
and I can't be I can't be who I am without the fuel for my body.
Yes.
And I think
Absolutely.
I think that you would agree with that.
Absolutely. So I want to jump into some secrets that give Sean energy.
Yeah,
Okay. You're going to want to take notes on this,
I will.
not just your viewer. Okay. So I have a little secret that I tell all my clients that I work with that they are going to pay me to make sure that they do this and that they could do it on their own. But the problem is, uh, sticking to something without accountability of somebody that you admire to knock on your door and say, "Are you doing this?" That's what you're paying for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but this is what I tell my clients who pay me. And so it's called the When Life Works list. You need to create a When Life Works list. And I keep looking up because it's on my board here.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a series of action items that you need a list of about 10 to 16.
Mm-hmm.
And then all you have to do is do a quarter of your list a day, and your life will work.
Oh, I love that.
And so you give yourself variety. So I have 16 of them.
I'll bet
And
dancing's on yours.
uh, uh, Sex is on mine, which is kind of like dancing, but it is not dancing, although
What?
it should be. Yeah, I
Come
know the
on.
dance
You're right
party.
on your homepage of your website. You have this
Yes,
awesome dance video.
I know,
You
I
better
know.
go
Maybe I'll
write
add
that
that.
on there
All right, got it.
ASAP.
So there's 16 things, and they all have to do with health, wealth, or relationships. And they're very simple. Like the first one is this right here,
Water.
hydration. That if I stay well hydrated, my brain works. When I do not hydrate, this electrical organism called my brain that has an electrical charge to it, it doesn't have something to conduct the electricity. That a moist brain gives clarity. A moist brain gives creativity and imagination and all of that. When your brain starts to dry out, your life begins to dry out. And I see it when I go into nursing homes. My grandmother's in an assisted care facility. They don't drink water because at some age they say your thirst reflex begins to dissipate. And so you don't even know you're thirsty anymore.
Oh, wow.
And so therefore you begin to dehydrate, and it causes so many different mental challenges of being able to remember things, and it can, I think, be the onset to a lot of problems such as dementia. Now, that hasn't been 100% correlated, but that's just my own gut feeling of what happens as we get older and we don't continually consciously hydrate. So it's hydration, exercise, things like journaling. I think that most people that go to therapists probably need to fire their therapist and just get a journal and write out what they're feeling, thinking, write out what they want, write out what they hate, write out whatever. There's no limitations to. It's just they got a brain dump. They just have to have 3 pages of just a conscious stream or an unconscious stream. And I find that to be so healing. I have other things on my list like reviewing materials about money and marketing, about prosperity, about building my business. Things like having at least one meal. Now, this is what's something that I've followed for a while now. One meal a day has to be all vegetables. It doesn't matter if the other 2 meals are nasty. Of course, that wouldn't be recommended, but if I get one meal, it's all vegetables. That's better than nothing.
Does your
I find
smoothie count?
it does. Yep.
Okay.
If that smoothie's my meal, yes. Um, some things on this board are like reach out and connect with my mentors, somebody in my inner circle, spend time with the little ones that I love. Like my niece, my nephew, my godkids. Connect romantically with my wife. What else we got on here? Create some new content, whether that's writing a blog post, being on an interview, something where I am being creative and sharing my message. And the list goes on to about 16 different things, and they're action items. And if I do 4 of those things in a day, and I can change them up what they are so there's some variety, the day is successful. I feel good. If I don't do anything on my list, even if somebody hands me a bunch of money and they say, Sean, congratulations, you got all this money. If I didn't do anything on my When Life Works list, you know what I'm going to do about 5 minutes after I put that money in the bank? I'm going to be back to complaining. I'm going to go back to I'm going to be complaining that it wasn't enough money, or I have to pay taxes, or some part of my brain is going to dampen the excitement because I didn't take care of myself. And that's
Yes.
what this When Life Works list is all about: self care. And I believe under it all of personal growth, if you want to eliminate your insecurities, it's all about self care. Then when we take wonderful care of our mind, our body, and our spirit, our insecurities don't have any breeding ground. Our insecurities breed when we do our when life sucks list, when we're, oversleeping or not getting enough sleep, when we're not doing any grooming or hygiene, when you don't take care of yourself and you feel filthy and gross and angry and exhausted and tired, then your insecurities start popping up. You're a loser. You're not pretty. You're never going to make it. Why would anybody love you? No one's going to want to buy from you because you don't have the energy or the congruence in your own heart and mind connection. Then you start to believe those insecurities. And when you start to believe your insecurities, it's this downward spiral.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think though, I totally agree. And teaching people to begin to find that balance and learn what their own unique needs are, the things that fill up their tanks, all of that is super important. And I think we can't ignore the fact that there are foundational things also that one, it's highly recommended that one does, like going back into your past and, healing corrupted stories. And so let me just ask you, so all of everything you just said is
Absolutely.
important, but beyond that, what would you say what are the things that you've done that have been most paramount to getting to, like, even just getting back to like a default state where by doing the things you talk about each day that is sufficient? Because I don't think that what you're talking about is sufficient when you haven't done this past work.
I agree and I disagree with you. And the reason why I disagree with you is because I feel like you can't do the work on yourself, which is what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't go back into the past and heal things that maybe feel broken or feel scarred or don't feel like they are serving you anymore to continue carrying them with you. I don't feel like we can do the work on ourselves successfully without doing the maintenance first. Because it's like you can't drive to the auto body shop to get your door fixed if you don't have gasoline in the car,
Yes.
right? And so you need to have your tanks filled up and you need to feel good today to schedule that time and then do that time and put that focus. Because if you feel lousy and you're out of gas and then you go to a personal growth seminar, it's hard to really not get stuck in the guck,
Mm-hmm.
the muck. And so I'm a big believer that the When Life Works list is essential, even when we're doing the work on ourselves, the heavy lifting, if you will, from our past. But I do agree with you from the standpoint of if you just do a bunch of maintenance like the When Life Works list, you're only going to get so far if you keep carrying with you your baggage, if you keep carrying with you the unresolved issues, the significant emotional traumas that you haven't that you haven't healed up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think one's you got to look at as a maintenance program, and one you have to look at as like an overhaul. And I feel like the maintenance has to come first so that you have the strength and belief in yourself. Because if you're not even doing the maintenance on yourself, then you look at overhaul as so enormous. Like, where do I even begin? Why would it matter? Why would I take care of myself if I'm feeling lousy now? So I think they have to be married together.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So we actually haven't done this yet. We normally do at the beginning of the episode. Well, can you take us back and tell us a little bit about your story, about your container, and the journey that you went on? I can imagine there were things, unique to you from your past, and a whole lot of stuff, stories and things that you had probably going on in you related to your container. And what was the work that you did that really made the biggest difference for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had a perfect life, no challenges, and nothing has ever bad happened to me.
Right.
So I don't even know how to answer this question.
Right.
Now, I have an interesting story. I was born with a rare condition called osteogenesis imperfecta. It causes the bones to be extremely fragile at birth, and throughout most of my life, my bones would break for no little or no apparent reason.
Mm.
Something like sneezing would break numerous ribs.
Oh my.
Putting on a pair of pants too quickly could break a femur. Just the smallest amount of impact would cause a fracture. And by the time I was 18, I'd fractured over 200 times. And so
Wow.
you can imagine the amount of physical trauma that I went through growing up, let alone birth. When I'm up on stage speaking as a professional speaker today, I say that when I was born, the doctors told my parents I would be dead within the first 24 hours of my life.
Wow.
And then I turn the conversation piece and I say, but 35 years later, all those doctors are dead, and I'm the only doctor that's remaining. So you can't always believe the experts, right? And and I go into a little further and say, never believe a prediction that doesn't serve you. Because even if it's, quote, scientifically right, why put your efforts and your resources behind an imminent doom? That's just horrible. Whether we're talking about a country, a planet, or individual life, like, you can't just pack it up and quit. You have till your last breath to make changes. So, growing up with this condition, it wasn't easy. I'm only about 3 feet tall. I use a wheelchair for mobility. What I think is interesting, though, Camille, is that people say that I'm confined to a wheelchair. And a wheelchair is what's allowed me to see the world. I am grateful for my wheelchair. I love my wheelchair. I don't see it as a prison or a sentence. I see it as a tool that's
It's a vehicle.
allowed me to, yeah, it's literally a vehicle that's allowed me to see the world. And with this container that I'm in, I get stared at quite a lot in my life by children and people that are very insecure and are staring at me because they have their own issues that they're worried about themselves. And I love spending time with people that are comfortable in their own skin because they'll just get right up in my grill and be like, oh, so tell me about, like, what's going on here with the bend in your arm, and they'll, like, without even
Touch
asking,
you and
start,
poke you and prod you.
yeah, without even asking, they'll start, like, patting me down like TSA, and I'll be like, what the hell are you doing? And they're like, well, I'm just so fascinated. I met this girl about 6 months ago, and she was one of these people very comfortable in her own skin, and she's just like, so tell me, like, how do you have sex? Like, how does this work? Like, where does she go? Where do you go? And I'm just like, wait, what was your name again? But I actually like that more than somebody who's kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
what's his deal? Like, why does he look so weird? I enjoy people who've done the work on themselves, who realize that they have an ego, they have a soul, and they have a mission. That crowd, that's my tribe. And I don't chastise for the people that either don't know about that way of living or don't want to live that way. That's their choice. But I come alive when I'm around those people.
Right. And part of who you are is to wake. I mean, we all have all of those components. And the people who are not living as such, we get to stir that up and wake that up in them.
That's why I love the movie The Matrix. We get to just offer the pill,
Yeah.
and we get to say, do you want the truth, or as we see it, or do you want to continue to buy the lie that's making you miserable
Right.
and be numb?
Right.
Because if I could just boil down all personal growth in one statement, would you want to hear it?
No, that's all right.
Okay, all right. Well, then let's talk about what's on Dancing with the Stars.
Let's talk about poodles.
Okay, so the secret to all, or the answer to all of personal growth boiled down is that people just want to feel good. And the way we go about feeling good, the choices we make to feel good, determine the trajectory of our life. And if the way you feel good is reaching for a cigarette, you're going to have a different future than if it's for a carrot stick. If the way you reach to feel good is for a a donut, you're gonna have a different life than it's for kale. If you reach out to feel good by intimidating people versus contributing and giving back to somebody in need, your life's gonna be different.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, here's what I found: that everybody ends up feeling good. We all end up doing things to try to feel good. Now, when people do things to feel good that are temporary, I call those gratifiers.
Right, because they end up making you feel terrible afterwards.
Absolutely, because they deplete you.
Mm-hmm.
And they become addictive because they're never enough. If you have one donut, I've never heard somebody say, you know, Sean, I really had this one great donut and it made me never want another donut again. Right? And that's because it's a gratifier. It creates that addiction that you need more of it just to maintain that feel good sensation. Whereas something that's fulfilling, it's sustainable.
Yeah,
It's lasting.
I remember. I think it was in your interview with Drew. You talked about you crave the thing that you crave the thing that you do. Like you begin
You
to
crave your you crave what you give yourself most.
yeah. And I had never heard it like that before, but it really made sense because it really will when you can see that you can come. I think when people are stuck in their bad habits and they are craving them, that they don't think that they ever could. At like the idea of craving the thing that's good for you seems sort of impossible because it's so hard when you're just wanting to make that change. But it really is true. As not delicious as this thing right here tastes,
The
I
feeling
crave,
you get.
yeah, the feeling I get that like it satiates me. It gives me mental clarity. It makes me feel throughout the day completely different than if I ate 6 donuts. And as you do that, so it's really worth beginning and getting past that. What is it, 21 days or 14 days of starting a new habit? Because that is it's not going to be as hard as it was at the beginning moving forward. It's going to begin to get a life of its own. You're going to begin craving that. You're going to begin craving interactions with healthy, awesome people when you start hanging out with them, when you have the courage to let go of the people
But
who
in the
aren't
beginning,
serving
it's
you, all of that.
scary.
Really
In the beginning,
scary.
it's scary because, like, okay, I have a friend, and maybe he'll even watch this. I'm not sure, but I have a friend who hangs out with a lot of people that like to get drunk,
Mm-hmm.
and he himself likes to get drunk. But when he's with me, he really doesn't drink because that's not my thing. And we do things like go to healthy restaurants or we have intellectual conversations, but I can tell he's straddling two worlds.
Mm-hmm.
When he's with me, he feels good, but he feels like he's being encouraged to make good choices, and not good in a judgment way, but in ways that are sustainable. But when he's with these other folks, that they're complaining about their lives and they're medicating themselves with those gratifiers. And he's scared to fully jump into personal growth. And he may never do it. And I'm a different person now because I'm not demanding him to do it. And I'm not even requesting that he does it. I enjoy his company, and when he's with me, as long as he's willing to play along the lines that I like to play, then I have a good time with him.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't join him in those activities that his other group does.
Right.
So I want to share another component similar to the When Life Works list that really helps me out, and that is a simple way of thinking about life. You and I are, and every human being have emotions, right? And emotions are what really color life. If we didn't have emotion, ugh, can you imagine reality? There would be no love, but there also would be no hate. There would be no ecstasy, but there also would be no pain.
Mm-hmm.
And so, motion is the color between the lines of our existence. And I believe that it's also a currency. That when people are feeling somebody's emotion, they can be led and they can be influenced to do things. And when they are listening to their own emotions, they can be influenced to do things. In fact, I believe that if you want to be a true leader in your own life and in the lives of others, you have to become the master of your emotions, not the slave to your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that you do that is simple. You need to make your decisions influence your emotions, not your emotions influence your decisions. So,
Put that on the court.
yeah, so you need to make your decisions influence your emotions, and your emotions influence. as opposed to having your emotions influence your decisions. So what does that look like? Well, when you have your decision influence your emotion, I will decide that at 5 o'clock tonight I'm going to work out. And come 4:59, if I'm like, ugh, I don't want to work out. I'm tired, or there's a basketball game on that I want to see, or I'm bloated, or I want to check Facebook, right? And all that crap. Or like, I don't want to get my gym clothes together and make myself presentable and go out into the world. And so, like, what happens? You let your emotions dictate your decisions, you're not going to work out in that space. If you let your decisions impact your emotions, you say, "Suck it up, kiddo. Like you made this decision," and then you go work out, and then after you're done working
You
out,
feel
you're like,
great.
"Whoo!" And you get the emotion that you really wanted. Okay. But when you flip it around, when you let your emotions dictate your decisions, you get, let's say you're mad at somebody, and then you're like, you know what? Screw Camille. I'm going to make sure that she doesn't get to work with this person. And then I let my emotion dictate how I start treating you and trying to sabotage you. And all that negativity of my emotion then influences my decisions. Then later, when I check back in with my soul, I'm like, oh God, what did I do? Camille is such a good person. I'm so sorry. And now I have to clean up that mess. Maybe that mess is really hard and impossible to clean up now. And it's because you let your emotions influence your decisions. And I even think this with the good emotions. I really do. Because, like, let's say love, like, oh, the feel good butterflies, right? If you have this feel good butterflies with somebody you just meet, and you're like, you know what? Oh my God, we should get married. Like, I don't know your middle name or anything about you, but we should get married. Like, I'm not recommending that, okay? Because that's your emotion influencing your decision. Whereas if your decision influenced your emotion, you would say, you know what? Let's go on about 10 dates. Let's go on about 20 dates. Let's date for about 3 months. And then let's check back in with our emotions and let's move forward from there. Because your decisions are conscious. Your emotions are unconscious. And your conscious mind, they're both beautiful. I'm not putting one above the other. Your conscious mind is the adult. It's running the show, hopefully. Your unconscious mind is the child. And if you let the child determine what it's going to eat and what it's going to wear and what it's going to do when its bedtime is, it's like that Adam Sandler movie, Big Daddy, I think it was called, where like he let his kid do whatever he wanted, the adopted child, and the kid was horrible. He was a mess because he had no boundaries or structures. He had no one making decisions consciously for him. He was just running around like a big, crazy, unconscious mind. We need both components in our life. And when we let our decisions impact our emotions, we get far more harmony.
Right. So I totally agree with that. And I want to bring us back to a question that I asked you. I don't think that we got the full answer. Is that, again, to be able to even be at like a neutral point, to be able to make clean decisions,
Sure.
it still comes back to, healing things of the past.
Yes.
And I'm still curious to know with your story what, because I really don't want to take this for granted. I mean, when you look at it from the perspective of the world, you were handed a plate where you had a lot of obstacles to overcome. And we all have some people more than others. And whether it be like you've had largely physical obstacles, but, for me, I had a lot of healing to do from my past, from trauma in my childhood. Um, I think even to get to the point where you can really make use of the information that you're giving us today, there's a base level of work that needs to be done. And I'm curious for you. I mean, now you're a doctor and you're a psychologist or a psychotherapist. What is your
Clinical hypnosis.
clinical?
So it's
Okay,
in psychotherapy.
psychotherapy. So obviously you've done a lot of work, but I want to hear a little. I want to hear the rest of that story from you about what you did to heal those things in you,
For
and
sure.
what brought you to want to do the work that you're doing, and the things that you would recommend for people who have been, I know it's really scary at the beginning, the idea of opening Pandora's box, that that there are things back there that are sabotaging you. You know that you have so much more potential than what you're living out, and yet it just feels like way too much, letting it all out, going through that journey. And what I say is that journey to releasing all of those things, to healing that, and it is the biggest return on investment that you will ever have. And it's
Sure.
what is going to allow you to live as your most powerful, authentic, amazing self.
Sure.
So tell us that piece of the puzzle.
So in the next 6 hours, I will be responding to this question. The way I would start the answer is I would say that it's been a work in progress. It's not been one thing that I've done.
Right.
And, I'm going to come back for a second to the When Life Works list, that when I'm working with my therapy clients, I tell them that I'm different than most therapists because I spend more time on the present with my clients than on the past. Because I'm not discounting our past. I'm not saying that our past doesn't matter. It certainly does. But I'm a big believer that we have a society that is obsessed with the past. And we have a society that says that our past is the ultimate influencer of our future, and it's not. The ultimate influence of our future is our present. And that's why I get my clients right away living their When Life Works list, because I find that a lot of our past demons get worked out when we take phenomenal care of ourselves, because maybe growing up our provider didn't take good care of us, and so we didn't have a foundation of trust, especially self-trust, because maybe we hung out with that person longer than we should have, stayed in that bad marriage, hung around that negative influencer for a very long time. So I start everybody by going back to this When Life Works list. Self-care has to be the foundation. And I've been working on my self-care for years. And the journaling is a huge part of what I've had to do, which is a part of my self-care. It's a huge part of really addressing these past moments and looking at them and just being able to observe my story of what has happened. And it's great to read journals from years ago. I am one of the most embarrassing experiences of my life. Still to this day, I let it embarrass me. I choose the experience of embarrassment is when my wife finds my old diaries, my old journals. Diary sounds like a 13-year-old girl, but
Dear
a journal.
diary.
Yep. When she finds my old journals and she starts reading them aloud, oh Lord, it is so. It's like, oh, I can't believe I thought that way. I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I used to think that way. But it's also very healing because it's like, wow,
I've come
I've
so
come
far.
so far because I no longer am mad at women. I'm no longer angry about my appearance. I'm no longer afraid to be wealthy. I'm no longer scared to speak my truth. But I had to record at the time that I was all those things so that I could get it out, right? And so that's a big part of what I've done is journal, journal, journal. There were times in my life where I journaled every single day for a long time. I mean, months on end, almost years, with some sporadic breaks, but that was a huge part of my development as a man. Another thing that I've done is I'm a big believer in spending a lot of money on my own personal growth. And I've spent lots of money on books that I haven't completed,
Yeah.
many of them that I've skimmed, some of them that I've finished.
What are some
But
of your favorites?
yeah, so some of my favorite books in terms of impacting my life, The Mastery of Love by Don Miguel
I'm
Ruiz.
reading that right now.
Perfect. I love The Four Agreements by the same author, Don Miguel Ruiz. I love this little book that's not given enough attention, and it's called The Practicing Mind.
Hmm.
It's by Thomas Sterner. And I was so thrilled. One day I got a call from this guy who's like, Mr. Stephenson, I noticed that you reorder my book in batches of 21 all the time. What are you doing with my book? And I'm like, who is this? And he said, I'm Thomas Sterner. I wrote the book, The Practicing Mind. And we got together for lunch one day when I was in town speaking in his area. And it's a beautiful little book about how life is a practice. And I love that quote. It was in the movie The Peaceful Warrior when he said, here's your problem. You practice sports or whatever he said. You practice gymnastics. I practice life.
Hmm.
And I'm a big believer. And in this book, he says he practices thinking. He practices feeling. He practices doing. He practices completing. And so like in America versus Asian cultures, apparently, in America, they will be like, okay, well, we're going to build a piano. Let's build 21 pianos a day. When you go into other cultures, like Asian cultures, they'll ask the people, well, how many pianos do you make in a day to the piano maker? And he'll be like, well, as many as I can make. Good. And some days he might make 3 really well. Some days he might make 10 really well. But he makes the practice of making a good piano not about banging out a manufactured, completion order number. And the same thing with your own life is, are you going through your day like an assembly line, or are you going through your day like a craftsman, like a craftswoman, where you are actually practicing the activity of brushing your teeth, practicing the activity of working out, practice the activity of meditation. And so the practicing mind is a big influence around my life. And there are many more, but I've spent a lot of money on my personal growth. I've done things like I'm a trainer of neurolinguistic programming. I have a doctorate in clinical hypnosis. I have spent many years of my life hiring coaches, therapists, people who are experts on mind, body, spirit. I've gone to energy workers, healers. I've done things that are totally outside of my comfort zone where I'm like, what did they just do? They want me to do? I've gone to nutritional experts. I've done detox programs. I've gone to retreats. I've done silent meditations. I've done a lot of work on myself, but I feel like I barely scratched the surface to how much more I have to work on. Because as long as I'm alive, I got more growth to do. And I think people are wanting to arrive. I'll tell you when you're going to arrive, when you die. That's when you're done in this incarnation. And I'm a big believer that the darkness in your past, it it can be worked out through self-care, but also being around people that have tools and mindset shifting technologies to get you out of that stuck feeling. I just fell in love with the unconscious and conscious mind interaction, and that's why I chose hypnosis as my passion and love. Because I think that when the conscious and the unconscious mind are great friends, it's like a parent and a child who are absolutely in love with each other. It's a beautiful marriage. It's a beautiful family, and I I have a program that I do called a breakthrough. It's also called full immersion therapy, where people spend a day with me, 12 hours. And it's not for everybody, it's a high end cost. And we peel back the layers consciously and unconsciously to what you've been carrying with you. But you can't just come to me and say, fix me, because that goes against my fundamental belief and that you're not broken. None of us are broken. At worst, we are lost or we are feeling broken. But feeling something and being something are not the same.
Yeah, I really love that, and that's the perspective that I always have taken with in my own life, and well, not always in my own life, but I got to the point where I saw that a lot of the work that I had been doing, there was a fundamental belief that I was broken, and all of these little things I was doing was helping to fix me. And it's a really subtle shift, but getting that that's actually not true. That was never true. That, who we are is perfect, whole, and complete. And then we have the things that the ego will tell us based upon the past, based upon whatever, that gives us that misinformation. But just bringing yourself back to that subtle mindset shift really does change everything, to see that and that you're not permanently stuck a certain way. You just have a lot of brain patterns in going in one direction.
I was telling a prospective therapy client yesterday, somebody who was inquiring about my breakthrough technology. I was saying to her, look, I may not work with you. And she's like, well, what do you mean? Because I think most people assume that if I give you money, you'll work with me. And that's not how I operate anymore. I used to do that because I was more driven by money. Now I'm driven by results. And I won't take on clients that are going to set me up to fail because I don't want that on my record. It's not that I won't take the hard clients. I just won't take the clients that refuse to change. They refuse to be influenced for change. And they're just almost like they're on a sightseeing tour to prove just another person wrong. I won't take those clients anymore. And so the experience that I have with my clients is that they work really hard at trying to sell me their limitations. No, please, please, please buy my bullshit, please. Tell me I'm not enough. Tell me I'm flawed. Tell me it's too late for me. Tell me I'm screwed up. Tell me. And I'm like, you're talking to the wrong man. Because what kind of therapist would I be if I believed that you're done here? You're not.
What do you really want the listeners of this show, of this episode, what do you want them to know?
Sure. So I've been really honing my purpose for a few years now and being able to crystallize it into a very clean statement. And my truth rang clear for me a few years ago when I realized that I am on this planet to rid this world of insecurity. That I believe that no different than a mass virus on the planet that can be dealt with by maybe medical intervention or nutritional intervention. It doesn't need, we don't need polio on this planet anymore, right? Mm-hmm. We don't need insecurity either. Insecurity is a choice through a lack of education. And so I'm here to rid the world of insecurity, at least to offer an alternative to insecurity. And I'm doing it because I want to eliminate my own. Mm-hmm. I want to live free of my insecurities. And I believe that's why I'm such a proponent of the When Life Works list, is that while it may not be perfect, I found that self-care is so powerful at creating an environment where your insecurities cannot breed, they can't survive. And so I don't think it's about telling a human being they will never have an insecure thought again. I think it's about, if you take great care of yourself, your insecure thoughts will make you laugh and you'll move on as if they were a joke. And so I'm on this planet in many different ways working on this cure for insecurity. I'm on programs like this one right now. I've written books, I do seminars, I do teachings, and most recently the thing that I'm most excited about is I'm teaching people how to become speakers, to find their message. What are they on this planet for, and how can they share it with the world? And how can they get paid really good money doing so? Because it's so fun to make an incredible profit from something that you believe in is making this world a better place. Because there's only three ways to make money: doing something that makes this world better, doing something that makes this world worse, or doing something that's pretty neutral. And usually neutral stuff ends up being bad. And so, I'm teaching now through webinars and courses live on how to become a professional speaker.
Awesome. I want to go to that because
Well,
I am a speaker
there
and
you
I
go.
would love to continue to hone that.
Everybody is a speaker. The only difference is not everybody is a paid speaker.
Ooh,
And
what is
I,
that? That looks like so much money.
it's the representation of $10,000.
Wow.
And I am a big believer. And the reason why I hold up $10,000 is because that's what I teach people how to make an hour. And as a speaker, you can make 10 grand. I mean, I've been fortunate enough in my career to make, up to $30,000 for 1 hour work. And being able to do a work that I believe in, which is a lot of fun. So I have a course coming up. Can I talk about it?
Yes, please.
Okay. So June 3rd, 2014, and 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, I'm gonna have a webinar where I'm gonna be teaching some of my best secrets on how I have built a career over the last 20 years to be able to earn 10, 20, $30,000 an hour for my time and expertise and my message, and how others can do the same. I'm teaching people how to cut in line, how they don't have to wait 20 years to make that kind of money, and to be able to travel the world and have standing ovations with crowds of thousands, if that's what's interest to them. So if you are interested in that, you're going to want to be on that webinar. And this summer, I'm going to be talking about on that webinar, I'm hosting a exclusive live event where I'm going to be teaching people in person a program I call 10K Speeches. And it's specifically 2 days of just being with me, and I help you find your voice, and I help you put together your marketing plan so that you can actually get out there and start making that kind of money doing what you love.
Wow. What do you have the dates already lined up for that?
Yep. So registration is going to be on August 14th. Is when they show up and register that night, and then it's the 15th, 16th, and 17th of August
Where?
In Scottsdale, Arizona.
That sounds really hot.
Well, I can tell you it's going to be muy caliente. But there's this wonderful thing in Scottsdale, Arizona called air conditioning and a gorgeous pool and one of the nicest resorts that you've ever seen. I spent some good money on making sure that we got the best room that has a gorgeous view of the mountains right in the seminar room, and I am so excited.
Have you done a lot of live events like this before?
No, this will be my first ever training that's all about my message and teaching people about speaking. I've, of course, spoken at thousands of events in my life, but this will be my first and only speaking training course.
Wow, that's exciting. Yeah, we'll put all of those. We'll put all of that into the show notes below. It is
Perfect.
such. I just completed my first 3-day live event that I hosted, and I had women fly in from around the country just this last Memorial Day weekend, and it was quite a rush. Not. I mean, that's like not. You can't even really put words on it, but to be able to bring your community together, to share your message, to have that. There's something that you really get from, I mean, doing things online is really
It's
convenient and
great.
it's
Yeah.
amazing, but it
Yeah.
doesn't, it really can't compare to being able to be with, like, in the energy
Yep.
of, and in the
Yep.
support of a community. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think live events are dead, and I don't think they'll ever go away because, humans, just like theater, I don't think Broadway's going away just because there's something to watching and being able to touch and hug and laugh together that you miss when you're sitting in your office watching your screen.
totally, totally. Well, wow, I would love to possibly come and meet you in person at that event. That
That'd
sounds
be
really
great.
fun. So, is there anything else that you would like to leave our listeners with today?
I'd like to leave them with this. The problems in your life are very complex. And I'm not going to belittle them. I'm not going to try to tell you that they're not there. They are. Mm-hmm. Your problems are real, and they're very deep, and they've probably been worked on for years. But the solutions to your problems are very simple. Mm-hmm. The solutions, unlike the problems, don't have layers of complexity. And it's going to be very easy to write them off because they don't match the complexity levels of your problems. And they're hidden in plain sight. And they're not going to come from me or Camille or anyone. They're going to come from within. Mm. And all we're going to do is hopefully jar you to ask. We're going to ask you better questions than you may be asking yourself so that you can get to the true answers. They aren't going to come from outside. Everything you need is going to come from within.
Yeah, I love that. And to dovetail back to what we talked about earlier, what people like Sean and I and the other people who are inspiring you, we aren't giving you anything. We are waking up that infinite self, that spirit that lives in you. And anything that you see in us, it lives in you, or you wouldn't be able to see it. We're just a reflection of that, in my opinion.
Both the things you admire and that irritate you.
Yeah, exactly. That's a whole nother 2-hour episode. And then so we're going to be posting the links to the webinar and to your live event. And then where can the listeners find you on the interwebs?
I would tell them, just let's stick with being on that webinar.
Okay.
And going from there. If they Google me, they'll find everything they ever wanted about me and more that I wish, wasn't being said about me.
Are there naked pictures of you across the web?
You know what? My attorneys advised me not to discuss that. So, but it is funny when you become a public entity. I try not to pretend like I'm, super famous because I'm not. But when you become a public entity, people say some weird shit about you sometimes that is both true and sometimes not true. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, you have to know that. Now, I was just thinking about this maturity and immaturity. An immature person cares a lot about what other people think of them, but they don't care about how their reactions impact others. Mm. A mature person doesn't care about what other people think about them, but knows that their actions impact others.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that.
Thank you.
Sean, I can't wait to meet you in person.
Likewise.
It was such a pleasure to be with you today. I love the work that you're doing. I love your spirit. I just thank you so much for your contribution. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for your time today.
Yes, yes, yes. So listeners, if you have not yet, we would love for you to rate, review, and subscribe to Paleo Love and Transformation. If you are just listening to this for the first time, and ladies, you want to tap into your inner beauty, you can start with 7 days to unlock your inner beauty at schoolofinnerbeauty.com. And if you are interested in paleo and learning more about what is eating paleo, how do I do it, how do I integrate it into my life, the place to start with that is paleowithcamille.com, and you'll get this awesome Paleogasm Starter's Guide. It's the first chapter of my cookbook, and I would love to give that to you. And with that, I say farewell. I bid you adieu, Sean Stephenson. Thank you.
Thank you, Camille.
Bye, everybody.